So I'm going to do a quick intro of myself, and then we'll get into today's coaching call. This one is going to be on, let me get the title right, Future of AI in Business. And so for Fridays, what we've been doing is there's essentially like this lecture series, I guess you would say, where this is a little bit more for giving you a good foundation of how things work. And then also, if you're trying to get clients for your business and you're trying to convert them, these are fairly effective strategies, or at least things that you would want to discuss with your clients, or ways that you can show value to them. This is something I have been doing freelance sales engineer work. Essentially, I would be a salesman for various engineering projects with that engineering background. I haven't been doing it as much lately. I am trying to get back into it a little bit more because I like talking, as you'll see, talk a lot about AI, especially. So when I get a chance to talk about AI, I enjoy it. And then just seeing all the new novel projects that people are interested in, it was always fun. I always felt like I was pretty good at converting clients once I got those leads, which is another reason why I'm working on a little bit more lead generation right now, is to generate those leads for some of my clients and then convert them. Okay. So yeah, my background is I'm Dr. Jeff, got my PhD in neuroscience, my master's in biomedical engineering. I built my first neural network in 2000 when nobody cared about AI at all. It was just something that we would do in a research setting, but then got a lot of experience after graduating. But then in the last 7 years or so, I've gone back into AI, initially doing computer vision and machine learning, and now really focusing a lot more on generative AI, which is LLMs, RAG LLM systems, agents, image generation, video generation. But I also always stress this, that a lot of times the best generative AI system also has some non-generative AI, traditional AI in it. If you have an LLM system, potentially you also want to have NLP in there. Or if you're doing an image or video generation system, it does make a lot of sense to have computer vision analysis to get better results for your image or your video generation. Any questions or news or interesting topics anybody wants to throw out there today? We got a Friday, weekend is coming up. Not a long weekend like last weekend. Well, I guess not everybody had a long weekend last weekend, only for some of us in America. Google
In the news,
absolutely.
thing in the news this morning, and I didn't catch the full story, but it was about, I think it's OpenAI that is going to start some sort of job matching board for AI professionals. Did you see anything?
Oh, really?
I'll,
I
I'll
did
try
not.
I'll try to
That'd
find
be
it.
great. Yeah, that might be really useful for a lot of us. Yeah, drop that in the chat. That might
Yeah.
be awesome.
It's going to be like a year in development, apparently, and then it's going to
Oh,
compete with LinkedIn in that vertical. And they're
yep.
also going to have some sort of like certification program or training or some such. I'll find it and post it in the chat.
Well, it's interesting because if you see, one of the complaints on both sides is that AI is generating the job posts, right? And then AI is generating the cover letters and the resumes. Hey, just put AI right in the middle and allow it to handle everything anyway. But I think this is one of these things that AI does have the ability to solve. Like one of the topics I bring up is that we're drowning in text, and in text for a lot of times you hit on a couple of the different points that we're talking about. Like one is, I was talking to somebody, like if you think about the mail that you get, snail mail, what percentage of the snail mail that you get is actually something you want? And what percentage is junk mail? It's probably 90% is junk mail. And then if you look at your inbox, similar type of thing, right? Where like your actual email inbox, probably like a lot of it gets filtered out right in our spam filters, but a lot of that is also spam, right? It is not what you want. And then if you look at blogs and SEO, when I was working in SEO, we have the blogs that we enjoy reading, right? It actually provides insight, but probably again, 90% of blogs are actually only generated for SEO purposes. And then even this type of topic where, now when you're trying to find somebody, you're posting a job, you have your resume and your cover letter, and these are just generated by AI. And then the same thing with like these spam emails are generated by AI, or they're going to be more generated by AI. And so there's just a lot going on where there is so much text out there, so much useless text, when really, if there is a way to just get that connection without so much useless text, I think that there is a lot of value or possibility there. Okay, and then our Google can keep Chrome browser, but barred from exclusive contracts and must share search data. Federal judge hits Google with data sharing to competitors, curbing those exclusive default deals, spares them selling Chrome, keeps it measured like the old Microsoft, potentially fueling rival AI search engines with fresh insights. They whine about quality drops, but their lockout cycle everyone else. $1 billion question. Does this provide an even more convenient backdoor for intelligence agencies, CIA, NSA, GCHQ? I don't even know what GCHQ. I know CIA and NSA. GCHQ is probably something, once you say it, I'll realize. To have access to your Google account or search history. What about client business partners? Google Society. I think, and this is where technology, we've talked about this before with like different AI topics. Part of the problem is people not really understanding technology or really understanding the fallout from different technological decisions or policies and where that's even going to go. I do think that Google does have somewhat of a monopoly on this, right? But then is this the best solution, right? They must share their search data with rivals. So then where does that even go, right? Now they're sharing this search data, which is really your data, right? So things are about to get crazy. And then as I keep on pointing out, and because I'm seeing it everywhere on my timeline, the 95% number, I thought it was 90%. Now it's 95%. 95% of AI projects don't provide ROI or fail. This actually aligns with something that I have been saying, is that part of the reason why a bunch of these projects didn't provide ROI or they failed is because they developed a project that essentially was no better than ChatGPT, which is something that I have promoted as a concept. That if you're building a tool that you want to create as an app or that you want to sell to your clients or do whatever, right? It needs to pass that bar. Is this worse than just using ChatGPT? And because ChatGPT is a great Swiss Army knife, right? It will do a bunch of things well, but it has limitations, right? If you want to, it has a knife, like the Swiss Army knife has a saw on it, right? But if you want to saw down a tree, you would not use the saw on a Swiss Army knife. You want that general concept, but just bigger and more powerful so that you can saw down a tree, right? And if you were trying to sell mini saws like that when everybody had Swiss Army knives in their pocket, nobody would buy that mini saw, right? But if you built a bigger saw that could help people cut down a tree, I don't even know if people use saws to cut down a tree. Maybe they use axes, right? But people do use saws, right? Then you'd have something. And so I do think that, again, like this takes not just AI skill, which we're all going over in these courses and in these calls and showing you how to utilize AI to get solutions, but it's really that thinking and that forethought. And I was talking to somebody earlier today about this idea that AI has given us the ability to automate and create all these amazing workflows and do all this stuff that would potentially save us time through vibe coding or any of that was the example that they had brought up. It is easier than ever to create an AI workflow or a set of agents to do something. But then, did you actually have a good idea? Did you think this out and research it? And as I've been working on a couple of projects lately, I've realized how important that is. That ability to just get going and start moving along and going down your path is so much easier now than it ever was before, where there was such a barrier to entry before. And now the doors are open. But then are you going down that right path? Are you making the right choices? British intelligence got you. Got you. British intelligence. So like James Bond. Okay, let me get everything ready. I'm going to share my screen. Future of business and AI. All right. And here we go. Today, we are going to have a little bit more of an opportunity potentially to have discussions or, as it says, like roundtables or debates. Either way, as always, if you want, you can turn your camera on or just turn your mic on to chime in or just use the chat. I know a lot of people prefer to use the chat instead, but as long as we can get some feedback and discussion on these topics when we reach it, that'd be great. All right. So, future of AI in business, how artificial intelligence is transforming business operations, decision making, and growth strategies. So, this is being a little bit more forward thinking. A lot of what we've been doing lately has been, what can I do for you now? And this is just hopefully going to give you some ideas of what's coming and what's possible to potentially also give you a better sense of where things may be going, what maybe you want to start focusing on, and what's worth investing in. Okay. So we're going to look at different emerging AI trends and then their impact, right? We're going to look at the convergence of AI with other frontier technologies, AR, VR, and Internet of Things. And really, that is part of the solution for a lot of this, or where you're going to really see a lot of growth, right? It's not just AI, but AI with other technologies. And then that's even true within AI. Like, one of the things I always promote is that when you're building a really good workflow, it's typically not going to just include one AI model. It'll include multiple AI models. And you don't want to potentially call the same model only once. You might need to use that model multiple times, especially these LLMs, these agentic LLM systems, so that you can get the best result out of it. Understand how memory augmented AI second brain systems can transform executive decision making. Watch out for these second brains. They're useful, but they need to be in their correct role. And evaluate the evolving job landscape and the balance between AI pilots and job displacement. And we'll talk about that. And again, like, this is part of that idea that both we're going to run into the AI apocalypse where we're all not going to have a job, and then also most AI projects fail. So where are we? And I think that we're probably going to be somewhere in the middle, and maybe not an apocalypse, and maybe not all AI projects are terrible. So we're going to take a look at the most important trends shaping AI's role in business, from multi-agent systems to autonomous organizations, and how this affects AI adoption over the landscape. And we'll look at both multi-agent systems, autonomous organizations, and AI native companies. Okay. So what does it mean when you have a multi-agent system, an autonomous organization, or an AI native company? A multi-agent system, I think for a lot of us here, we have some experience in it, or this is one of the things that we're most interested in. So these are collaborative AI networks that work together, advanced negotiation capabilities between agents, distributed decision-making frameworks, and emergent intelligent agent interactions. So it sounds like a lot of good stuff. And really what you're looking for there is getting to the point where you are getting that ROI, where you are getting to something that is more autonomous, right? That you have a larger, more complex level of automation. What I always stress is that if you have a multi-agent AI system, essentially you want to build one agent, then another agent, get those to work together, and then another sort of decision making at the top, all of these different agents working together. But you would not start that way. You want to get one working agent and then another working agent and then another working agent, and get those to actually provide value, each one of them. And then once they are all providing value and you have a ecosystem that is independently doing work for you, from there, you can build something that will have all of these agents work together in concert. This is actually fairly challenging. Most projects don't make it to this level. And it's because even just that first agent and getting value out of that is not a given, right? You do have to make some really good choices there. And I think that a lot of times there's a lot of noise or hype, right? They're like, oh, look, this will do that and this will do that. Even when we were looking at Opal, and nothing against Google Opal, but it wasn't really a multi-agent AI system. But the agent said, it's like, this isn't really doing much. This looks cool ish, but it's not going to provide value. And so you do need to make sure that each one of those provides value. Autonomous organizations. This is also borrowed from the blockchain. They have people, and I don't know if this is the only time I've heard of DAOs is through the blockchain, although I'm guessing that it does exist within other formats. This is decentralized autonomous organizations. Essentially, They are very popular in the blockchain because then you have various people who have stakes in this blockchain by owning tokens, right? And then they are able to make decisions in a decentralized way, right? Like where people are able to do voting or whatever based on their token percentages, instead of having one leader who's making all these decisions. With AI, you can do a similar type of thing, but using AI to handle the voting, even or some of the decision making process. So, this is AI driven workflows and processes, self optimizing enterprise systems, right? And again, this is something where when you need something to be self optimizing, you need to figure out how is it optimizing? What aspects is it optimizing? And do those optimizations actually matter? Oh, yeah. Then, yeah. So, exactly. Blockchain based governance structures. AI native versus augmented. So these are companies that are built with AI at their core. These are fairly new companies, right? People haven't really been trying this previous to this, but you're going to see more of these where it is structured with AI from the ground up. And then AI augmented is a traditional business adopting AI, which is much, much more prevalent, right? Probably if you look at right now, it's not even probably 99% to 1% as AI augmented to AI native. It might be even more than that, right? 99.9% of AI augmented to AI native. But that number is going to shift, right? There is going to be more and more of a shift of this AI native built with AI at its core system. And potentially that is what a lot of you on some level are doing now, right? Where if you're starting out a new project or a new sort of venture, which Sheen was discussing early on, where it might not seem necessarily like you're doing an AI native project, or you might not have called it that initially. But if you start with AI first and you start building everything with AI, then you're starting more AI native, right? But again, that core AI project does need to be relevant and financially viable and feasible. You do have this competitive advantage of AI first companies is we're seeing if it's AI first and you're building with AI and you get it right, there's lower costs, higher efficiency, higher productivity. Emerging trends in AI. So here's a couple of case studies. Auto GPT and Baby AGI. Experimental autonomous AI agents capable of pursuing complex goals with minimal human guidance, right? They have self-directed task planning and execution, dynamic goal decomposition capabilities, memory management, internet access for real-time information, right? So these are basically Auto GPT was able to demonstrate the ability to create a working web application with only high-level goals specified by a human operator. And again, we still need that human operator, but using AI, they're able to take these different tasks and then just automate them with AI. And then DAOs, right? So DAOs are not very popular, but they're definitely something, if you haven't heard the term before, it is in crypto slash blockchain in finance. And again, operate without centralized leadership. It's blockchain based government systems. Token holders are voting on the organizational decisions. And then use smart contracts for automated operations. If you're not familiar with what a smart contract is, essentially it is rules that govern various aspects of things on the blockchain. There are smart contracts. So if you're familiar with the term, T's are run with smart contracts, but they can be all kinds of different things. The thing about them is that once you have that contract, it's fairly permanent. That's what some people like. This is part of the appeal that people find in blockchain or cryptocurrency is that if you look at, say, in America, right, one of the complaints that people have, and this is true of probably all governments, but I know in America we've had this issue where we can just generate new money whenever we want, right? If they decide to put in $2 trillion of new money into the ecosystem, then they can just do it. On the blockchain, they can't, right? Bitcoin has a scheduled amount of Bitcoin that gets released, and it's very regular and it's well understood. And there is no person, nobody even knows who runs Bitcoin, right? Or who invented Bitcoin. There's obviously theories, but nobody has been identified as the person who runs, right? It just goes and it has a schedule, and that schedule is met and it's handled, and people like that aspect of it. And so that is part of the concept of smart contracts. And then you can have treasury management without central authority. Again, without somebody who just says, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You do have buy-in either from everybody who's involved, or there is a regular scheduled system involved. And then MakerDAO, they manage over $7 billion in assets through decentralized government, demonstrating the viability of autonomous financial organizations. So if you look at it, DAOs are, again, fairly popular within the blockchain world and do show that there's a different way to govern and manage finances. If your company became 50% automated tomorrow, what governance issues arise? Discuss challenges, risks, potential solutions with your group. Consider operational, ethical, and strategic implications. So we're going to go over this. I do want to put this out there. I'm going to throw out these different concepts, and then let's take a little bit of time, throw some information out there in the chat, or you can speak up if you want. Who approves AI decisions? I think that's a big one. Human oversight requirements, decision escalation frameworks, accountability structures, risk and compliance, error management, regulatory compliance, audit trails for AI actions, system security protocols, and workforce impact, revised role definition, new skill requirements, change management, and culture transformation. Okay, so what kind of issues would come up? Anybody throw them out there if you became 50% more automated tomorrow with your business or with any business. AI and autonomous organizations in crypto will be pretty interesting to see if it gives retail users a level peg. Yeah. Who do I have here? Okay, that's an AI powered job platform. Anybody, do you want what kind of issues would arise in it? If I don't get anything in the next couple of minutes, we'll just move on. Does anybody go for it, Sanjay?
Yeah. So, see, every model is day by day growing, right? So, for example, Claude has so much knowledge already it has got. Everybody, many guys are giving confidential. So, it has accumulated and it has whole knowledge base now. So, like this, everybody like also building their knowledge base from gathering all the informations from whoever so log in with that. So, all your information is gone at that place. But we are starting just trusting this organization, but how, like you showed this audit and all that laws, but who will control? So whichever country controls, they are going to play with that. So how safe these LLMs are directly? Are there any other models coming like means where we can have our own agents with our own data where we can play? Still, it gives the same output because currently nobody is realizing that they're uploading their data randomly and everything is getting observed. So how
Well,
this can be controlled? Yeah.
Sandra, you know that there's ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Grok and all those, but there are open source models that people can use and get very similar results without having to send their data to these different API systems. Now, that also has its own issues and limitations to it, and does I was talking to somebody at one point in time. Part of what we are exposed to is the training of these LLMs. And we've talked about this before, like bias and things like that. However, you also do have the ability, if you, even with the closed source LLMs that are available, you can fine tune them, right? And then this also very true of the open source ones, where even if there is some bias in the LLM, then you can shift that bias to something else. Data is a big issue, right? And how this
Yes.
data is
Yeah.
used and utilized. And even if you personally or as a company come up with a good in-house solution, the essentially entire world is going to have exposure to this problem
Correct.
of data insecurity.
Yes. Yes. Because see, blockchain or anything like where your data is encrypted, nobody knows what your password or how you link. Everything is. Is there any technology which will overtake and still these can't? But there is no other way, right? The more data they get, the more they become stronger. So there is the model is like that. It can't get knowledge on itself. So they whoever like we individuals we train and we say this prompt is not good. Again we train. Again we give different prompts. So it is understanding in the back because now reinforcement training everything came. They're understanding the user what their capability and they're getting self trained and they're moving in that direction. I'm just wondering like they are becoming more smarter, of course, definitely, but safety wise, I'm just worried. There is any alternatives which will be coming in future so that we can still have whatever LLM we need, but we feel
Right.
very safer with data.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting. You just brought up a point that I saw earlier today. If you think about it, we initially taught the AI, so these LLMs, about like how to communicate with humans, right? That is essentially the purpose of an LLM, is to not just be able to communicate, but to be able to converse conversationally communicate, right? There's a difference between just communication and being able to have a conversation. And that is absolutely what an LLM provides. But then now, after we've essentially taught the LLMs how to communicate with us, we are now having to learn how to communicate with the LLMs, right? If you are learning how to do prompting and prompt engineering, you are now learning how to communicate with an LLM effectively as it learned to communicate with us effectively. And what is that doing to us? Like, we are now adapting as people to the AI. And then RNet, so privacy, access to client data, how the AI automation solutions handle sensitive data, ensuring it handles processing confidential manner, not allowing it to be easily accessed by malicious actors. It's going to be a bigger and bigger issue, sensitive data. And then also just, I think a lot of us saw this in the news. We talked about this weeks ago where this came out, where I don't think most people, this is touching on both what Arna and Sanjay are talking about, realize what is going on with their data when they're doing these interactions, right? People thought that they could just tell ChatGPT whatever. It turns out, well, no, like that's actually admissible in court. ChatGPT is not your lawyer and it's not your psychiatrist, right? It does not have patient doctor confidentiality. It doesn't have lawyer confidentiality rules around it. It's just an LLM. And if you're telling it things, then that is available to be used against you in court, right? I think when you have a situation like this, and this is probably similar to some of the other technologies we've talked about, blockchain, the web, where you have this new technology, people are very hyped about it, but they don't totally understand it, which being vulnerable to scams of some sort, either for their data or for their crypto. All right, let's get back to the slide. AI plus AR, VR, and the Internet of Things. How these frontier technologies are coming together to transform business operations, customer experience, and create entirely new digital business models that merge physical and digital worlds, right? So AR and VR. VR is when you put the goggles on and you're in a whole new world. AR is when you put the goggles on or whatever, and you're still in this world, but then there's additional like emojis or tokens or graphics that pop up in the real world. What was it? Pokemon? There was a Pokemon game essentially that was like this, right? Where people were finding Pokemons in the real world. It was very, very popular a few years ago. It might be still popular. It's just I don't hear about it. And that was a good example of AR. And then the Internet of Things, which is basically all the stuff that is connected internet, right? That's not necessarily a computer, although I guess a computer counts. So they have those new refrigerators that have a computer in them and are connected to the internet, or even like your car, right? Your car is connected to the internet a lot of times now. And so all of these different gadgets that are connected to the internet, once you are connected to the internet, then that piece of technology, it's only another step before you connect it to ChatGPT, right? Or you connect it to another LLM, or you connect it to a RAG system, or whatever that is. And then the same thing with AR and VR. I think I saw a post recently about them. Somebody created, and this is probably not as cool as they made it seem. No, I gotta tell you, 99% of AI stories that you read about are as cool as they make them seem initially. There's very few of them that actually, I feel like, pass the sniff test or whatever and act in our school. But they took, I think, was it 100 AI agents and put them into Minecraft, and then they built their own civilization and world or whatever. And it's okay, maybe that worked out great and amazing, but not totally sure. But again, pretty soon we're going to have these AR, VR experiences where people are meeting with AI personalities, essentially. It's already there in certain video games. The problem is it makes me dizzy. And I think that if you're over a certain age, the dizziness comes in, but kids love it, right? And they're young enough to basically be raised on it. I think I always was worried that when I got old, our parents, at least some of our parents, they would just complain about the music being too loud and them not liking the music. I still like the music that they have coming out, but then something like VR, I'm like, oh, that's when I'm too old. I can't get into VR. AR, VR applications, immersive training environments for employees. So yeah, not just playing video games, but actually making it so that employees or even customers can use these different environments. I actually was working on a project years ago where they were trying to use VR to do training, and the general concept made a lot of sense. It just people need to invest in it and really, again, think it out really well so that you can provide a learning experience and a training experience that matters for people. Virtual product demonstrations and sales experiences. Imagine if you got into a template car and then they put a VR goggles over you and you could experience what it would be like driving any type of car. That could be something pretty cool. Remote assistance and collaboration capabilities, right? And so that is probably going to be the future. You can see how with each one of those, especially remote assistance and collaboration capabilities, where you could have VR and a doctor somewhere providing assistance or helping you get through your issue, maybe an IT solution. And if you can have that being done with a real person, there's only so much more until you just have a virtual sort of AI version of that. IoT data streams. So real-time data collection from connected devices, right? So these are all the different devices that were connected to the internet. AI-powered predictive analytics and insights, resource optimization and efficiency improvements. Again, is there a way to have AI help you with your refrigerator or your thermostat or something like that? I know that my thermostat is connected to the internet, and this thing thinks it knows what I want, and it absolutely does not. I don't know what the AI that they're using to control my thermostat is, but let me get in there and I'll tell you, I don't need it that cold all the time, and I also don't need it that hot all the time. And then automated maintenance and system monitoring, especially with everything being software based, being able to troubleshoot your device that's connected to the internet using AI automatically. Sounds pretty cool. And then digital businesses, seamless blend of physical and digital operations, smart spaces with embedded AI capabilities, personalized customer journeys across channels, and data-driven business models and experiences. Personalized customer journeys across channels. This has been promised for a little while. We'll see if this is able to materialize and how good it is. I do think that they try to do some of this, and I think it does creep people out a little bit, but we'll see how well it works, right? If you ever notice when you look something up on Amazon, and then you see ads for it on Facebook or Instagram, that is part of that same concept. That's your customer journey across multiple channels. That's very simple, but that basic technology, take that, add some more AI to it, and now you have something where, and this kind of goes back to what Arnett brought up at the very beginning, is sharing that browser data, right? So your data is getting shared. If these different systems have access to your browsing data and other aspects of your data, then they can possibly give you a better customer experience, but then they also know maybe a little too much about you. All right, Walmart VR training. This is pretty cool. Immersive employee training program using virtual reality to simulate real world scenarios. 17,000 plus VR headsets split across US stores. These are modules for customer service, new technology, and emergency response. This had a 70% increase in retention compared to traditional training, and reduced training time from 8 hours to 15 minutes for certain modules. That's pretty amazing. But I do think that like what you can get with VR training, and especially AI assisted VR training, is that we all learn at different speeds. We all have different knowledge bases, right? And so putting everybody inside the same classroom at times doesn't make sense. You have all these kids who are at different learning levels, who are at different speeds, who have different interests, and they're all just learning the same thing at once. This is a problem with all training, all education, everywhere. The more that we can personalize it, the faster and more efficient it'll go. And then Tesla's predictive maintenance. So as I said, our cars, right, are connected to the internet, right? They are part of the Internet of Things now. IoT sensors combined with AI algorithms predict vehicle maintenance needs before failures occur. So millions of connected vehicles sending real-time telemetry data. AI models trained on billions of miles of driving data. So that's always very important for AI, is having that data to train on. Remote diagnostics, over-the-air updates to prevent issues, 35% reduction in service center visits through preventative fixtures. And this is one of those things where I think people can get down on AI or they don't like some of this, what it can do. But at its core, when it is done well and safely and securely, it can provide solutions, right? And it can make things easier. Many of you have had to, I think we all have had to, if you own a car, had a maintenance issue at the wrong time. And what if AI could have told you, I possibly would have ignored it anyway, right? Design a retail store of the future using AI, AR, and VR, and the Internet of Things. Imagine how these technologies will transform shopping experiences, operations, and customer engagement. Consider both customer facing and back end applications. So, really quickly, I'll just hit some of these AI elements, AI and VR experiences, Internet of Things implementations. This could be a little bit more fun. Just throw out some ideas, brainstorm, throw something in the chat, or turn on your mic if you want. So, you could have personalized shopping recommendations, inventory optimization systems, automated checkout experiences, visual search capabilities, dynamic pricing strategies. And I think if you've heard some of these things, you might have seen implemented already. If you want, throw some of those examples out there. AR, VR experiences, virtual solutions, what I talked about with the car, where you could try on any car, a base car. AI product information overlays, immersive brand storytelling, virtual showrooms for large items, and interactive store navigation. And then for IoT, smart shelves, inventory tracking, environmental customizations, customer flow optimizations, connected fitting rooms, and real-time supply chain visibility. Again, we're not going to do 20 minutes on this. We'll probably do 5 minutes most. Okay, let me also check the chat. So if you want to start throwing some stuff out there, oh yeah, Pokemon Go. There we go. To Google, Europe is good with data guidelines. Yeah, but it'll be updated with their technology. No one have idea how to control AI and data to be frank. Okay. Yes, data and AI is a problem. Anybody have any ideas, any brainstorming ideas of how you can combine AI, VR, AR, AI, IoT to do something cool? Or do we just want to obviously keep talking about how data is such an issue? Cool if you could just walk into a hardware store and describe what you're doing. They'll give you the products to use. Yeah, I think that I can easily see how that would be a cool thing where you just go in there and you basically have, what was it, like ChatGPT for hardware, right? You could potentially bring in a picture and describe what you want, and it would automatically give you the products you need. Yeah, and then tied right into the store inventory where they have the inventory and then it can tell you exactly where you need to go, or it could give your customer service representative an exact idea of where to go. Any other ideas besides what Shane threw out there? The Home Depot experience could be, yeah. And that's the other thing when you go to Home Depot, right? Home Depot is gigantic. And I think that, not to disparage anybody who works at Home Depot right now, I think that there was something where at one point in time they had knowledgeable people working at Home Depot and then they gave up on that. And so they have enough inventory to keep people showing up. I feel like I go there sometimes, they don't have what I want. And then there are 3 people there who know what they're doing. And then everybody else is just walking around. How is this controlled? I don't know how it's controlled exactly, but this is also, again, another issue that we're going to have as people connect everything to these different agents, especially these. MCP is a big talking point right now, and really just being able to connect to all of those tools to your LLM is pretty cool. But then, as Sanjay's bringing up, this also just becomes a vulnerability point. Anybody else? I think AI and impairments could be huge. Visual audio. And one of the courses I was giving previously, somebody brought this up. We think about AI a lot of times for us, people who have all of our senses and are, I guess, not too far out on the, what'd you say, what is it, mental divergence scale or whatever. But there's plenty of people where AI can help them do things that wasn't possible before, where blind people can use AI to help them guide themselves, or deaf people are now able to get AI automated sign language, or like being able to translate what people are saying in real time and being able to just read it. Or also, I know that they're doing other work with people who have like other type of cognitive impairments. A lot of places need to be wheelchair accessible. But pretty soon with AI, they might also need to be like deaf and blind accessible using different AI technologies. Clothes shopping, seeing how an item would look on you in different environments. My girlfriend would love that. military simulations, training recruits in various battlegrounds with specific missions. I think also not just training them, but desensitizing them to that type of situation, seeing who can handle that, recording their biometrics as they're going through those difficult situations with PTSD from having been in a really difficult situation like that, using AI VR to potentially desensitize or help reset them from being something in there. I guess if you want to see what you look like in your military uniform before you go out there, then you can combine the two. So many routine manual jobs, all those can be automated through chat, voice bots, and human-like automated machines. I already see some of this in my local grocery store where we see those self-checkout things. But
Correct.
also, if you ever notice with self-checkout, it usually happens to me when I'm not even doing anything wrong. But it does have a computer vision system in there that is checking what you're checking out and what you're buying. I've tripped it up accidentally sometimes, and then they show you the video of what you're doing. And it's, oh wow, so you are paying attention and you're seeing what I'm putting on here. Actually, only going to get more and more advanced. EMDR TAMA therapy. All right, let me see if I can get how much farther I can get with today. We'll do another 5 minutes and then we'll just wrap up. Second brain. So let's see if we can just finish the second brain at the very least. How memory augmented AI systems can transform executive decision making through enhanced knowledge management, contextual recall, intelligent assistance. So this is AI memory systems, knowledge graphs, and LLMs, and productivity enhancements. So let's go through what some of these are. So persistent memory for AI assistants. So this is something that I think that most people don't totally recognize is that when you first build, say, your own RAG LLM system or connecting to the OpenAI API and like having your own little chat system is not that hard. What is not as understood is that the OpenAI API for GPT, say 4.0 or whatever, is not going to operate like ChatGPT does. ChatGPT has a memory system in it. That is not automatically what you get. I think there is a version of AI that will allow you to have memory, but even that is somewhat limited and doesn't work the exact same way. But you can set up your system to have this memory, and that is necessary if you wanted to be able to do these sort of larger, more complex tasks. Contextual decision support frameworks, historical data integration for insights, pattern recognition across enterprise data. And so if you look at a bunch of these different things, like connecting to OpenAI's API is pretty simple. Adding all this stuff is more complex, but this is where you get that ROI, right? Where you are able to build something that is better and more interesting than just ChatGPT, right? Because if you just, the OpenAI API by itself is worse than ChatGPT. So it is upon you to add potentially other AI models, a pattern recognition model, or something that is able to do analytics on historical data. And if you combine those with your OpenAI API connection or Claude or whoever, then you're cooking. Now you have something. Knowledge graphs and LLMs. So a knowledge graph, just to give people a better idea, these really started to come out. I think that they became more popular, especially when RAG systems got involved. So retrieval augmented generation is what gives the ability for an LLM to have knowledge over a certain domain. So essentially, OpenAI, the LLM for GPT, was only trained on a certain amount of knowledge, right? And so it doesn't know knowledge about, say, your particular business or your instruction manual for your business or anything like that. And so RAG gives system access to that information. The problem is that it's flat. It just grabs a few different pieces of information and utilizes them. Knowledge graphs allow you to take these chunks, these pieces of information, and connect them together, topics or concepts. One of the examples that I give is you could have two different pieces of information. One could be the description of a kitchen. The other one could be the description of a house. And these would be two different chunks. But what you could do is connect them together with inside of, right? So then you have this description of the house, you have the description of a kitchen, and then you have a node or a connection between these two nodes that says inside of the kitchen is inside of the house, right? And so instead of just having two separate pieces of information, now there is some sort of connection within there, right? And then you could have the chef that is inside of the kitchen and they are cooking inside of the kitchen. And so there's ways of connecting this information instead of just making it out there and floating. And then productivity enhancements, contextual recall of relevant information, meeting memory and automatic follow-ups, intelligent assistance for daily tasks, information retrieval, augmented generation. And so these are a few, I think a few of us have been trying to play around with these, especially meeting memory and automatic follow-ups. I know I've talked to a couple of people on this call at various times about doing something like that. There's a lot of different tools out there that are trying to purport and do this for people. Let me get back to, stop sharing really quick. Following on from long privacy data threat earlier, apologies. Current responding AI business operations solopreneurs isn't it our responsibility to ensure client privacy? What would be the best way to approach the e.g. would you use a custom cloud computing storage system? Obviously, it's a broad subject with many variables, which is way too long to cover right now. However, could you give us a quick TLDR and possible revisit the topic in the future? Yes. So one is with LLMs, and I brought this up already, you can not use the API systems, right? You could instead do a self-hosted LLM, and then you can keep everything as private as possible, right? If you want, on your home computer, you can, if you have a fast enough system, you can run an LLM there, and you don't need to use the API. And then the same type of thing, you can host that LLM in the cloud, and then it's as secure as any other data security system that you come up with, right? If you have encryption or whatever you're going to do, OAuth, you can keep it secure and not have to send your client's information to ChatGPT, right? There is another solution which a lot of enterprise companies use, which is basically a lot of these cloud platforms allow you to do, they have HIPAA compliance versions so that say healthcare companies can use them. And if it's HIPAA compliant, then it's compliant with a lot of other things. I'm just using that as an example. But they do have cloud enterprise solutions where you have to sign a business agreement with them, and then you're allowed to do that. Our time is up for today. I will see everyone on Tuesday, where we're going to go over how to take your leads and enrich them, and then how to send out a bunch of emails for leads. If you want to get a little jump on that, you can check out Mailgun, which is a service that I found that has a really good free capability for the first month. But we'll talk about that on Tuesday. Have a good one, everybody, and have fun with AI.
Thank you.